I'd like to call the meeting to order. As everybody knows, there's 2 agenda items on the list. They've been worked on even through noon today. Thanks to council here vetting out some stuff so we get everything right the first time. So if anybody does not or feels they do not have the updated packet, we can definitely give you a copy of the amendments. If not, we could probably just start off with bless you, members of the panel, and then we can go on to presentations.
My name is Juan Willingham. I am the chair of the Audit and Finance Committee, and I also represent 3rd Legislative District.
Andrew Joyce, Chair of the Legislature.
Sean Thalen, Commissioner, Management and Budget.
Susan Rizzo, County Controller.
David Lattina, Department of General Services.
Mark Grimm, Ranking Member on the Finance Committee.
Lisa Armando, Albany County Deputy Commissioner.
I'm Paul Bergdorf. I'm the Deputy Minority Leader. Frank Morello asked me to attend, and I'm also on the Audit and Finance Committee.
And also part of the Facilities Committee that these have also come down your way, Mr. Bergdorf, and stuff that you are more than welcome at these committee meetings, just to have a handful of this fun stuff. I just want to go through the amendment timeline so everybody knows. What recommendation the board makes today will be forwarded to the legislature. The legislature will then send that out to public hearing. After the public hearing, then the actual resolutions for the effectuating the amendments to the plan, and then the bonding requests will follow suit with that. With that being said, and if there are any other questions, I'd like to turn it to Angelo here for the anaerobic digester project and what we are looking to change.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the committee just for obviously meeting on such short notice. I'll go through a little bit of the scheduling on the project and then kind of justify why we asked everybody to meet when we did. So just to kind of bring everybody back to kind of the original project, the joint regional anaerobic digester project is a project that we're doing with Saratoga County. Basically, it's going to be cost shared 50-50. 50% of the capital would be by Albany County or the district, and the other 50% by Saratoga. So in looking at the overall project, the initial concept for the biosolids management was to essentially have the waste product of the digesters dewatered and essentially disposed of. That product was classified as a Class B biosolids. Basically what that means is there's residual pathogens within that material. So there's limitations as to what that product can be used for. Also with the dewatering, that product is only 20 to 25% solids, with the remainder being water. So in having discussions with our engineering team and in having discussions with the sub-consultants that did the market analysis for us, what we're seeing is that there's a limitation as to what that Class B product can be used for. Compounding that fact is the kind of the emerging contaminant with PFAS that's kind of been in the press as of late in terms of that material. So what we're finding out just from a market level is that Class A product is more valuable and is basically there's more uses for that end product. It's also cheaper to dispose of. So the way we go from Class B product to Class A product is essentially by a drying system, where we basically take that dewatered material, we send it through like a secondary process, and we basically dry it, essentially to a 90 to 95% solids. Basically, you're taking most of the free water out of that product. By doing so, you're reducing the overall weight of the product. So when we get into potentials for contaminants being in the sludge, whether it's PFAS or some other emerging contaminant, you're reducing the overall weight of the product by going from a Class B to a Class A. And looking at this and then looking at kind of what the market could sustain for the 2 materials, we felt that now was the opportune time to look at doing a dryer system, which wasn't in the original project. So the cost, the increase that we're looking for, so the original cost was $48.5 million. We're looking to extend the capital to $56 million. Again, that would be shared 50-50 between Albany and Saratoga. Again, that number, that delta, the $7.5 million, is really to provide a dryer system for the sludge management so that we can kind of mitigate our disposal risks with the solids. And that's really the justification for the increase in the project, and that's what the request is. Again, we feel at this point it's a good opportunity. We just to kind of talk about the overall project schedule. We're in design through Q3 of next year, so we're still kind of in the beginning stages of the design with our engineer, and we've got a target completion date of basically Q4 of 2023. So having kind of this discussion now makes sense because, again, it gives the engineer an opportunity to kind of incorporate these pieces into the design, obviously, before we go out to bid. The other reason for kind of making the decision to do this now is that EFC, or Environmental Facilities Corporation, is possibly looking to offer a WIA grant program as early as April this year. Historically, that program has been let usually like July with the closing date of September. So last year we applied for the WIA grant. We were successful in obtaining $5 million for that. The program is structured in a manner that projects below $50 million qualify for a maximum grant of $5 million. When you get above $50 million, that threshold goes up to $12.5 million. The other benefit of that is that there's a sliding scale on the grant money. So if the project is targeted for $56 million, we would get the max of the 12, we would qualify for the max value of the 12.5 for the grant. But if for some reason we are able to keep the project below $50 million, either because of changes to the design or just, we're fortunate enough to get really good bids, it's on a sliding scale, so we don't defer back to the $5 million. We actually defer back to some value. Generally, it's 25 cents on the dollar, so we could possibly get upwards of even $10 million if we fall below the 50. So there's a benefit on the sliding scale of that. So really the reason for kind of bringing everybody here tonight is so that we can be in a position to pursue the larger grant money through EFC and then that WIA program. So we would have to relinquish the $5 million to pursue the 12.5, but we feel that we've had some good discussions with EFC, and we feel that they're going to be favorable to the project again this year. But we just wanted to be in a position to essentially have the financing in place so that when we pursue that, we've had that in place, really by May or June, before that program is scheduled to close. So that's my presentation, I guess, if you've got any questions.
So does the board have any questions they would like to ask, or any?
Can we start?
Mark Grimm?
Go ahead.
Oh, you would
Go
like to
ahead,
start?
Mark. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
Sorry, Juan.
Yeah, are you suggesting that you're bumping it over 50 million by design to have more opportunity to get more grant money?
That's a byproduct. We're really doing it to mitigate our risk on the disposal side, because right now, the way the base design was structured, it was only to basically dewater that sludge material, that biosolids material, which would be a Class B product, because there's limited market for that product. The fortunate thing with New York being as heavily involved in agriculture, they have plenty of Class B material in the way of manure and such. So doing land applications with a Class B product, there's just a limited market for that material. Compounded by the fact that if for some reason I guess the discussion on the PFAS or any emergent contaminant is structured in a way, or restrictions get put on that material for end usage, we want to be in a position to basically dewater that material as much as possible, so that if we have to landfill it, we can mitigate our disposal costs. Again, by just simply taking out the free water, we're substantially reducing, the weight of that material. So
Why didn't anyone think about the dewatering process in the original proposal? Has there been some revelation that said we need to shift the process here, or what's the explanation for now going to this more of this dewatering, as you put it?
Part of the design phase was to have an actual market analysis done, and then we just completed that work under the design component, or under the design phase. So the sub-consultant Material Matters had basically done an analysis of the local area, and they again felt that there was a higher market for the A material than there was the B. In speaking with some other entities, just in general in the Northeast, there is a market for composting material, And we are still having those discussions with entities as to whether there would be an opportunity for them to take the B product. But the issue there is if you enter into an agreement with essentially a third-party merchant to take the B, you're essentially tied to one entity, and if for some reason that agreement were to basically fall apart, we would essentially be left finding another home for that B product, or again, landfilling it or disposing of it somewhere. So I think we just feel that this mitigates our risk, because it gives us more options to do, or to dispose of that material, either through, beneficial use, whether it be through soil amendment, or if need be, through landfilling it.
How confident you are, because I'm a little concerned that $7.5 million on $48 million, that's about a 15% increase.
Yeah, well, again,
Confident that there won't be, because one thing I'm always concerned about is you get a project number, and it increases and increases.
No, it's
What are the
legit.
prospects that we'll see additional increases?
we have a very conservative contingency on the estimates as of right now, so we're basically holding a 30% contingency. Now, again, we're on the very preliminary side of design. But again, I think the benefit of being at a position where we're over 50 million, we are then eligible for 7.5 in additional grant monies to EFC. So if we're successful in that, that essentially brings us back to the 48.5, which is the original project cap. So,
Rhonda, you had a question?
Yes, so, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So the initial cost was 24.2?
yeah, it was, yep,
Okay, so
Yep.
now we're up to 28?
yes,
Okay,
correct.
so now, you said if it's below 50 million, we can get up to 5 million.
They look at the aggregate cost for the project, so not necessarily just our portion, they look at the total cost, which includes Saratoga's piece as well.
But again, you said it was 25 cents on the dollar. So now, what you said, you think about relinquishing the 5 million to get 12.5 million. So do you expect us to go higher?
No, we're asking for 56.
We're asking for the 50 million.
The total project cost, we're asking for 56, half of that being 20,
56.
right,
Yeah.
28 million being our portion, the county or the district. Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, so again, it's cost shared with Saratoga, so we're only responsible for 50% of the total capital expenditure.
so then we would be eligible for the 12.5.
Correct, because the overall project cost would be over the $50 million threshold. So EFC looks at it as an aggregate, they don't necessarily look at it just as our portion.
All right,
So-
so now we were just under the 50 with the 48 or 49.
Yes, and I'll share this as well. We just got this information last week. We just received notification from EFC that we are going to qualify for 0% hardship financing for $20 million of our portion. So, so we're excited about that, obviously, because before we were looking at a rate of 1.6 for our piece, but again, 20 million now will be at 0% rate for a 30-year window.
Okay, can I ask you another question? All right, so you said we're in the design stage. Okay, and so that's what really has us here, because as we went into the design stage, that's where we found out.
Right, so as part of that design, again, we completed a market analysis, and we just completed that roughly about 3-4 weeks ago. We've had a series of workshops to discuss that, and I think at that point, we started making, the decisions to look at doing this, this added process for the dryer.
Okay, do you expect this to be enough?
At this point, we expect this to be enough. Again, we're in the early stages. My crystal ball is only so good.
Do you have anything else?
I'm good for now, I'm here to go and say.
Paul, would you like to ask a question?
I have a few.
Okay.
How are you going to dewater the product? Are we talking about presses, or are we talking about adding heat, or how?
The dryer would be heat, so the normal operation would be you'd press it, so you get that initial kind of the low-hanging fruit, so you basically get all the free water you can just by pressing it, so there'd be a series of belt presses. I think we are looking at centrifuges, but I think just for operationally, probably belt presses would be the preferred technology. At that point, it essentially goes to a dryer system, and there's a couple different technologies, but basically you're heating the material. So I think you're north of, 600 degrees on on the technology side of it. And again, I think the benefit of using the dryer is you can essentially utilize the biogas that's being produced from the digester, essentially behind the fence line. Because we are gonna have a fuel product, a renewable fuel product with the digesters that can be reused.
So you're seeing that as a closed system, so we're not going from something which was perceived to be energy neutral to something where we're going to continue to use natural gas or some other supplement to dewater.
I think right now, based on the models that we're seeing, we expect to have enough biogas to basically heat the digester units, to run the dryer system, and then to provide supplemental, or provide fuel for building heat. We suspect there might be some residual biogas available, but that's the piece we're still trying to figure out.
Okay. In the dewatering process, does that add potential runoff to the product from where you store it? Or is there anything that has to be done for containment or a Speedies permit or anything like that?
We have to do a Speedies modification anyway because the digesters are a new process. In terms of the dewatering piece of it, the belt press is really where that majority of that free water comes off of, and that essentially just gets returned to the front of the plant. Once you get to the dryer, you know, when I say 20 to 25%, that really probably doesn't mean anything, but it's basically like soil. If you were to pick up like clay and squeeze it, it wouldn't be, you wouldn't have any free water coming out necessarily, but it's moist enough where it'll hold its shape. So that product, we're not expecting any runoff, and then once we basically get it through the dryer, certainly not any runoff because all the free water is basically out of it at that point. So,
Well, the scope of the project is changing sort of considerably. Have you had bond counsel look at this, and do they believe that you need an update to your seeker? Because a couple of years ago, the seeker that was done, as you know, was problematic. Set it back a year, took it out of a certain funding stream, then we had to go through a full seeker again.
Yes.
And so the question is this going to require an updated seeker?
we don't anticipate that. This process will be located at the north plant. Right now, we're expecting that this could be located within an existing building. So we're really not seeing really a seeker impact from the fact that the dryer system itself will be located inside of an existing structure. So.
Okay. Just wanted to raise the issue.
Okay.
And I had to ask you to sort of confirm that with bond counsel.
Okay.
It's definitely a message we can relay along to them if it's a concern.
It seems
said,
like
like to do
a rather
things-
large change to what was your regulatory approval. What is the potential, either is it cost neutral to the Albany County and the coalition members, or does that assume that you get the full $12 million grant from EFC? What's the range of increase of cost to the end users who are disposing of the product?
We are assuming the 12.5, which again gets us right back to the original cap. So we're not really anticipating really any change, especially since we do have the hardship monies now, or the 0% for the majority of the financed amount.
And where is this in the process with our partners, with Saratoga and your board? What approvals have been granted?
We've met with both our boards. So we met with the joint board on last Wednesday, and we got approval from them. And then I met with the district board last night, and we received approval from them.
Saratoga.
Yeah, so there's basically a joint board with Saratoga, so it's comprised 2 of our board members and 2 of their board members. That meeting was last Wednesday, so this passed, the increase passed through the IMA board, the joint board, and then I had a meeting last night with our district board, and that passed as well last night. Saratoga has not done anything with their specific board as of yet. I think they're really waiting to see where we where we decide.
So we're going first in this instance.
Right, and that's generally how we did it last year too, when we did the bond amendment, because they basically piggybacked on our bond resolution when they did their approval.
Okay, and one last question, the structure of the financing. Are we, Albany County, expected to issue $28 million of bonds, or just approve the district to do 56?
The financing at this point is going to go through EFC. Again, we've already got acknowledgement that we are going to get hardship financing, which is 0% for the 20 million. Obviously, that doesn't cover the full amount of the borrowing. We will be looking at using EFC financing, which is a requirement for taking the grant monies anyway. So all the bonding will be basically held through EFC, or all the financing, I should say.
All the financing will be done through EFC?
Right, so that includes basically short-term for basically getting us through the 5-year period from design to construction, and then also that we close on the long-term at some point.
So who actually holds the
district.
debt and guarantees the bonds?
The district will, in terms of, well, EFC does in terms of the,
Well, EFC does the issuance.
yeah.
They are the issuer. Then there are people who buy the bonds, there's the bond holders. But who is actually ultimately responsible to pay the debt service? Is it Albany County?
district.
Is it Saratoga County?
Well, the district for our portion of it, yeah.
So when we approve this, we will be on the line, and $28 million.
Correct.
Will go on our balance sheets.
Yes. And the debt service required payment would come from the district, and they would pay to the debt service fund to settle that.
My question.
Does the board have any other questions?
So,
Wanda?
when we do these projects and and the bonds, okay, we started out at one amount, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so now, but isn't there an end date to the bonds? So if we change it, is that changing?
Well, this would put it in a new structure, right, Angelo, and it's 30-year?
It's a 30-year period
Yeah.
for the payment of debt service.
Yeah.
30, okay, so wasn't the original one 30 years also?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think it was-
Okay, so, and I just have one other question. You're saying that we're getting more money because we're increasing, we're getting I guess, what do you want to call it, a credit? We're getting more money because we're increasing the amount of money that we're asking for?
We'll be applying for the larger tranche of money through the program that they offer, but they do offer a larger value grant with a higher value project, so that's what we're pursuing.
Okay, so like it started out at 48 and a half, and now we're up to 56, okay? And so we were only eligible for up to 5, now we'll be going up to 12 and a half.
Yeah, we'll be applying for it, yes, but yes.
So
that's
are we
true.
paying less?
Well, I'd say no. Because again, we just increased the cost by $7.5 million, so the additional money that we're gonna get from the grant is gonna basically bring us to the original amount. So we're not gonna pay less.
So, okay,
So we got 5 in grant now. If we get to 12.5, that'll be an additional 7.5 in grant money, but we're asking for an increase in the capital project by 7.5. So essentially that offsets the raise in the capital.
so are we even?
I would say we're even based on getting the 12.5.
Any other board members?
Yeah, I just want to be clear
Mark?
on this. Sub 50, we could get up to 5 million. Over
Correct.
50, we can get 12.5 million.
Correct.
What is what degree of certainty do we know that we're going to get that?
We've had some really good discussions with EFC. Basically, EFC's directive is that they are looking to give out monies for environmental projects. The fact that they're looking essentially move the program up this year to possibly opening as soon as April versus kind of the traditional fall. I think they're being aggressive this year with giving out grant monies. I think the fact that they're also moving the grant program up puts us in a very good position because, again, to go after these grants, you basically have to have an engineering report done, your bond resolutions need to be in place. So it really restricts essentially the competition as well because all these projects would have to have been started. And I think, obviously, meeting today and trying to get these approvals and then get a new bond resolution, I think puts us in a very good position if, in fact, the program is released in April like they're intending to do, because, again, there are going to be projects that probably aren't going to be as far along as we are.
Okay, I'm just worried if we don't get the grant, we're out $7.5 million, but if we
We've had
do get the grant, you've upgraded the plant at no additional cost to the county.
Correct, yeah. No, we've had some good discussions. I would love to say it's a guarantee, but, you know,
It's a high probability.
we feel there's a high probability. Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Paul, you got one more?
Yeah. If you're in the design phase and you're in the design phase, you know, through summer, is that good enough to submit a grant application in April? And if so, when will EFC be making a determination?
So part of them moving it up is they want to make the determination by the summer. So the initial numbers or dates that they're targeting are probably end of June, possibly beginning of July is what we're being told. Again, some of that money is contingent on kind of what the state does with their financing. So again, all that kind of being said, if everything's in place on the state level from a budget perspective, they are indicating that they are planning on opening that up in April, probably with a close date of June or July.
Anything change with this project with the south plant?
We are looking at a force main option. And we're intentionally keeping that out of this because of the seeker implications. We haven't really done much in the way of doing any true design or routings. We've done kind of a preliminary analysis on pumping liquid sludge to the south plant versus just dewatering and hauling it. So we are still looking at that. Again, given the fact that we have an opportunity to pursue the WIA grants at the larger values, we really didn't want to kind of push the seeker on the force main because we just don't have enough information on the force main yet to make a decision. I think my preferred option is that we move forward with a force main, which is going to trigger a revised seeker, but the intent is to kind of go through the grant application process first and then revisit the force main and then do the seeker at that point.
And you're comfortable, and your council is comfortable, and your environmental engineers are comfortable that that will not be determined as segmentation under seeker?
Well, we would be doing additional seeker work for the force main. So, again, I think the original concept was to do the dewatering there and then truck. Quite honestly, I think there's benefit to pumping for a variety of different reasons. Obviously, you reduce truck traffic to the port, but then there's just also, you know, you're not dewatering sludge to haul it 4 miles just to re-wet it again to basically push it through a process only to dewater it again on the backside. So there's just some inherent value there. But I don't think from that perspective that we should have an issue with seeker. Again, we do have to open seeker back up if we opt to pursue that force main in earnest.
Well, you asked the question I wanted to ask without the timeline, so. Does any of the board have any more questions? If not, would anyone like to make a positive recommendation for to represent this to the legislature? Motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. It's a big project.
Be interesting to see when we go through the bond.
This one is one done by a board member here, Mr. Latina. This is basically a cleanup. It's not a fiscal impact. Some of the wording that we used in the original capital plan was worked through by council to get it to be in a more correct fashion where we won't have any issues down the line. So project scope and everything still remains relatively the same, but go ahead, Mr. Latino.
Correct. These are for all the parking facilities that we have, the garages. This includes the Spruce Street Garage and the Times Union Center. As you know, we have a large project that's going to be going on over there. This is to address ongoing upgrades we want to make to some of the facilities as far as, drainage goes, maybe add some membranes to keep the facilities, in a lot better shape, and some elevator projects, especially at Spruce Street Garage, getting that elevator back up and running at those garages. So this is really, and we're running into a thing where now with the New York State Code, they are going to be changing this code every couple of years for these garages as they're seeing different things on them. So this will keep us ahead of those ongoing changes.
And not to interrupt anyone else, but the timeline on that is, I know the last time they came in, about 36 months ago? When's the next schedule on that?
Well, yeah, it's every 2 years the garage has to
Every
be
2 years.
inspected. Every 2 years the garage has to be inspected by an outside firm.
Does the board have any other questions or comments they'd like to make?
Sure, I have a question.
Mark?
David, the more we find out about what shape that garage is, it tends to cost us more money. Are there any new revelations that we've discovered recently that would indicate we may have to spend more money?
No, actually, with CT Mail and the company OSI that they had hired, they did a comprehensive study of the Times Union Garage. We put out the package, which we'll be presenting tonight to the committee. It's under budget right now. We were expecting on the first phase of the project to be close to probably about $4.5 million. Came in well below that, so I think we're being in good shape at everything they looked at in there.
We'll go to Mr. Bergdorf.
What actually are you adding? Obviously, the cash flows are virtually identical. By changing the verbiage...
It's just the verbiage. The bond council didn't like the words repairs and maintenance in the original. That's why it was changed to, upgrade and renovation of the garages.
Those terms mean specific things to bond council. So this, within the scope of what we were doing, this is a better verbiage to represent that.
So we're not actually doing more, or are we doing more?
Well, we will be doing more. We have to do Spruce Street yet. So when we go to Spruce Street, there'll be upgrades to Spruce Street Garage. Everything that we've done at the TU is going to be upgrading the TU Garage, adding the membrane to the top of the top deck of that to keep water penetration from coming down, and fixing a lot of the deficiencies that are in there. So, it's upgrade and repair. I mean, there's different products to use now. It would be considered an upgrade as you're doing a repair. So it's really the verbiage of the word.
It also has to do with the useful life of...
The useful life. I mean,
term of the
if
bond.
you're going to put a seal coating down, maybe it's going to last 2 years. You put a membrane down, you're going to get 10 years out of a membrane. So I think that's the difference that they're looking at there as far as bonding, as far as they're going out for bonding, 5 to 10 or 30-year bonding on it. Where it's not really a maintenance thing, it's just coming in and putting a seal coat down.
Is there any other questions? Board members?
Definitely a challenge. We see what's going on across the river in Troy.
Yeah,
For
it's definitely,
municipal garages. Hopefully
like-
this will kind of change the culture going forward. We can do more maintenance ongoing.
Yeah,
opposed to-
well, what this is gonna do is this is actually gonna put us on a good maintenance schedule. I mean, I think, for the age of the garage being over 30 years old, it's not in bad shape as compared to the one that's only 10 years old and they're probably putting $20 million in it across the way over here. So I think we've done a pretty good job with the garage.
Please don't do that. Any other comments by the board?
I just want to ask him one thing. So we're saying the garage, this was 30 years old?
Yes, the garage is 30 years old.
So, the preservation, no, excuse me, what are we calling it now?
Upgrades?
Upgrades and renovation. Okay, so do you think we've learned anything over the past 30 years? When did we really start? Have we always maintained, or we,
The garage has been maintained. I mean, we've done caulking in there, and we've done some structural repairs in there. We've fixed some of the Ts and the L-beams, some columns, some beams we fixed in there. But now it's getting to the point where, I mean, we live in the Northeast. I mean, with the salt and the freeze and, there was, I want to say, many years ago, there was lack of maintenance on it. Since we started into this program, we knew we had to do some work to it. That's where we are at this point. In 2017, we decided, we wanted to start looking at these garages, before even the New York State came in with their code enforcement on these, doing the inspection on these. We knew we had to get some work done on these and try to improve these garages and get them back to where they should to last another 30 years.
So I heard you say something in the difference in the way in which you would be doing, instead of caulking or something?
Right. Most of the problems that ended up coming from the TU garage was from the upper deck. Once the coating and the caulking joints up there, it caused a lot of water penetration to come down through. And in the Northeast, because it's an open garage, the freeze, the crack, that's where you get a lot of this stuff. What we're doing now is, after we get it all done, they're putting a membrane over the whole thing to keep it from any kind of water penetration coming down there. So as we do this, in the following years, as this membrane, as we, have the companies come in and look at the membrane, make sure it's all right, get a good warranty on the membrane, and just keep after that, just like we do on roofing. When we do a roof on one of the buildings, we make sure we get a 20-year warranty on a roof. And when they come back and the warranty is up, they come back, they do the small repairs, and then we get another 10 or 20 years out of the roofs.
So would you say that there is a definite plan in place, not only to keep up with new ideas and technology and resources as far as maintaining that garage, that, 2017 said 30 years, that's 3 years ago we decided to start. So is there a plan in place?
Well, there's gonna be, once we get there, we'll have the plan, we'll set up a maintenance plan, we'll make sure, especially when we're dealing with SMG, that they're informing us when they're finding these problems, that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing under their contract as far as keeping it clean, neat, do a lot more painting around there, keeping it the way it is, sealing, making sure every couple of years we go in and do inside painting, so we're sealing out the water, especially on the stair towers where we were getting a lot of water penetration on the stair towers. So there's going to be a big maintenance, going along with these buildings, which we could say.
How often would you be preparing a report to provide?
Well, I think, every 2 years, we're going to have an assessment by an outside entity, but there's no reason why every 6 months or so, our engineering department can't just take a quick walkthrough and see what's going on over there. And like I said, with SMG as the managing partner over there, they should be letting us know when they're finding these problems. We have a leak over here at this caulk joint. Okay, let's get because we're going to get a pretty good warranty once we get this work done. Let's get the company back over here and get this stuff repaired.
So who's ultimately responsible for, for checking,
Well, SMG is there all the time.
Okay.
You know what I mean? They're the managing partner in the garage. We're responsible for the repair work on it. But we're just asking them now to be a little bit more diligent to let us know, what's going on there.
So we're relying on their,
Well, let me put it this way. We used to,
Assessment.
we're not now. It's going to be, the Department of General Services is going to be going over there, taking a walk through every 6 months or so and see what's going on over there.
that would be wise.
Yes.
Because we're putting out the money.
Well, like I said, I mean, in the big picture of it, yes, we are spending $3.5 million right now on the first 2 phases of the project, but it's 30 years old. So, I mean, the garage has never been
Replace the
down.
atrium.
Yeah.
So, that was 30 years old too.
Yeah. So, and like I said, we have been doing work in there. We have everything that we needed repairs structural. We've been doing those structural repairs all along, new stair pans and, sometimes, in this weather and being outdoors, in a year, things could go bad in a year, around here. Like I said, I think, when somebody was telling me that the state went over here that's only 10 years old, they're putting $20 million into that already for the upkeep on that. So,
Do a roof, put some solar panels on it. That's the next one.
yeah.
So, any of the board have any other questions, comments? If not, Can I have a motion? You have to abstain on this one if you don't mind. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, sir. Thank you. At this time, as a group, I just want to tell you, as the committee, with these votes, what I'll do is pretend. I'll compile a packet of the amendments and send them over to the legislature with our recommendation. And I'll send a copy of what happened to all members here, so you can stay informed and see that the change going through, so.
Just make sure it's electronic, don't send me any paper.
Okay,
we go.
I can do that, definitely.
When do, Mr. Chairman, when do we anticipate that we would act upon this?
April,
Is
possibly?
that going to meet his guideline for getting the grant in?
That's a good question. Am I right, Mike? Think April, the latest, or earliest?
Totally. It's not gonna be ready by next Wednesday.
We could be voting on the amendments at the next meeting.
Okay. So March 11th,
Yeah.
9th.
So is this going to go on the audit committee agenda for the end?
For this,
For the-
okay.
That's right.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah, that would,
our
that,
precursor to
Yeah.
Thursday night.
But this was
Correct.
all late additions, so.
yes.
Okay, well, that's what I was getting at with the timeline.
That's why.
And the first part is for the public hearing. And then
Yes, sir.
it would come back to the committee also.
Circuitous. The word.
If there is anything, I'll call the close of the capital committee at 4:51. Good time.